the art is different every generation. And it's certainly different now than it was in the 70s and 80s when we were being so affected by that stuff in a lot of ways. And so, but that's how I see that, and when I'm talking to Willis, or any of these guys, and I'm like, man, you're our Beatles, I know you don't see it that way.
Right, you can't.
That they took the care of this music that could be really pretty hokey in decades past and turned it to high art. Your buddy Christopherson there. And so, it was my belief that record Home had the possibility of having effect on country music the way that Red-Headed Stranger did, where people would see it as a possibility to be on country radio by doing great songs.
Meritocracy.
Or you don't, that's record didn't have drums on it,
Right.
It really was a lot like Red-Headed Stranger in a lot of ways, in the way that it was, you and I have spent so much time when you have to deal with that question of how do you get on the radio? What kind of a piece of crap song will I have to eventually do to get on the radio?
How much will I have to take off?
And so when someone could do something like Red-Headed Stranger, which says, wait a minute, maybe there's another way. And that Home was there.
Yeah.
And that's not what happened. Country music took a hard right turn instead of whatever, we don't know what was going to come next, but you had the number one country record in the country was it
wasn't just number one country. It was a cultural shift.
was a quasi acoustic record with songs that they picked because they thought they were really good, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, what happened was a really hard right turn on country radio that is still there, and that's not me having a
right.
That's just the facts,
right?
And it's indisputable, and from where the politics is, and so it's interesting to look back on, So
it's funny, man, the way you frame that. It feels like something Malcolm Gladwell ought to cover.
It's part of our culture. I believe that. Well, that's what The Next Waltz is that the songwriters that had such an effect on me, whether it was, Rodney Crowell or Willie Nelson or Neil Young, just all of these people, I really feel like it's the high art of our time. I think that in 200 years, they'll look at Townes Van Zandt and Guy Clark and those things just for this moment, the way that they do some other folks from 200 years ago.
That's right.
That's what I think so you're mentioning the people who think of it like from an anthropological, whatever it is. Yeah, right. I believe that, that the art is different every generation. And it's certainly different now than it was in the 70s and 80s when we were being so affected by that stuff in a lot of ways. And so, but that's how I see that, and when I'm talking to Willis, or any of these guys, and I'm like, man, you're our Beatles, I know you don't see it that way.
Right, you can't.
But that, that they took the care of this music that could be really pretty hokey in decades past and turned it to high art. Your buddy Christopherson there. And so that's the way that I look at it. And I think that, that future generations will look at, not taking me out of the question, but looking at Chris and
I agree.
Townes and
that's
that
part
era.
Of why we have to trust, even though we can make fun of, nobody ever lost money underestimating the intelligence of the American.
Sure. Yeah.
So I get that part.
Right.
But the consensus,
right,
as we sit here in 2022, the consensus is
right
over a grand scope of 300 million, 250 million at the time.
Yeah.
Townes, the Beatles, the Stones, Dylan, there's those are the names that come up.
Yeah.
and there can be little tiny arguments, but as far as the consensus goes, it's like,
Yeah.
even the arguments justify the fact
And-
you're arguing over
yeah.
these people.
Yeah, and I still think that those kind of folks, they do push out from the culture no matter what's going on, and it changes, what it is, but I you said meritocracy. I do believe in that, and the things that wherever the culture at, that it kind of comes out at.
It has to, man.